The death of Herod the Great, an intrigue of palace and blood. Subscribe to the Lived History channel and leave a like on the video. He murdered his wife, had 3 of his sons executed for fear of losing power, and ordered the killing of all children under 2 years of age in his kingdom to prevent the birth of his successor. This was Herod the Great, the bloodthirsty king of Judea. His reign was marked by blood, paranoia, and betrayal. But what is truly shocking is the manner in which he died. Consumed by slow and terrifying agony, his body literally decomposing while he was still alive. He was born in the 1st century BC into an Idumean family that had adopted Judaism. His father, Antipater, was an influential advisor to King Hyrcanus II, leader of the Hasmonean dynasty. Thanks to Antipater's political maneuvers, Herod obtained important positions from a young age, demonstrating his cunning and, above all, his total lack of scruples. When the Roman Republic entered a phase of chaos after the assassination of Julius Caesar, Herod knew how to take advantage of it, allying himself first with Mark Antony and then with Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus. Thanks to these alliances, Rome appointed him king of the Jews in 37 BC. However, his path to the throne was not peaceful. He had to fight a bloody war to consolidate his power, eliminating all those who represented a threat. Once on the throne, Herod became a monarch obsessed with absolute control. He tolerated no opposition and saw conspiracies everywhere. He ordered the execution of many members of the Hasmonean dynasty, including his wife Mariamne and his own sons, Alexander and Aristobulus, accusing them of treason. His cruelty knew no bounds, and his thirst for power led him to commit unimaginable acts. Despite his brutality, Herod was also a great builder. His reign was marked by ambitious architectural projects, such as the reconstruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem and the construction of the fortress of Masada. However, the splendor of his works was overshadowed by the ferocity of his rule. One of the most infamous episodes attributed to him is the so-called Massacre of the Innocents, mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew. According to the evangelical story, he learned of the birth of a child destined to become King of the Jews, Jesus of Nazareth. Herod ordered the killing of all the boys under the age of 2 in Bethlehem. Although there is no definitive historical evidence of this event, it aligns perfectly with his cruelty. In the last years of his life, Herod was consumed by paranoia. He believed that everyone around him was conspiring against him and continued to execute anyone he suspected, including his firstborn, Antipater. But death was closer than he imagined. Towards the end of his reign, at the end of the 1st century BC, Herod began to suffer from symptoms that threw him into excruciating agony. His body filled with festering sores, his abdomen swelled grotesquely, and suffered from unbearable intestinal pain. Fever consumed him day and night, while his flesh literally began to rot while he was still alive. The historian Josephus described his condition in detail. He suffered from gangrene of the genitals, which produced worms. His breath was foul, and his body was racked with painful spasms and uncontrollable convulsions. The doctors of the time tried every possible cure: balms, ointments, infusions of exotic herbs brought from Egypt, but nothing could calm his pain. His condition rapidly worsened, and with it, also his mental stability. Desperate, he immersed himself in baths of boiling oil, believing that they could alleviate his torment. But it was in vain. Today, modern experts speculate that Herod suffered from a combination of chronic kidney failure, Fournier's gangrene, and perhaps a parasitic infection, which caused him to scream in pain for nights on end. The ulcers on his skin oozed foul-smelling fluid. His body seemed to be consumed from the inside, and muscle spasms shook him violently until the end. It is said that an unbearable odor surrounded him, as if his body was decomposing while he was still alive. In his last days, Herod, mad and desperate, took a monstrous decision. Fearing that at his death the people would celebrate instead of mourning him, he ordered the arrest of hundreds of influential men of Judea, having them locked up in the hippodrome of Jericho. His last will was that, at the time of his death, all these men should be executed, so that the kingdom would be in mourning. However, his orders were not carried out. As soon as Herod breathed his last, his officers released the prisoners, and the people celebrated the end of the tyrant. Herod the Great died in 4 BC, after weeks of unspeakable suffering. His body was transported to the fortress of Herodion, where he was buried with great honors, but his legacy was marked by terror and blood. After his death, his kingdom was divided among his sons, but none of them ever achieved his absolute power. The people who had lived under his tyranny for so long could finally breathe in peace. Herod was a king who ruled with an iron fist, but in the end, neither his wealth nor his power could save him from the most horrible death imaginable. That's all for today. Let me know below in the comments what you think of this historical event. See you next time. Bye.